All right. Good night, good night, good night, good night. Welcome to actually our first episode of our Purpose Pod. I am your host, The Voice. And obviously, with me today, we have a legendary man in my eyes, right? When I went to St. George's, this man used to, take me on them wings away, but I was very stubborn, right? I was very stubborn, and fast forward, this man is now coaching, the Immaculate Conception High School. Um, in my opinion, one of the best girls coach out there, but we'll get into it. We'll talk more about it. So, Coach Q, welcome.
Respect, my respect. I'm humbled. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course, of course. And again, every time I talk about Coach Q, every time I'm gonna bring up Coach Q, I always have to talk about there is nobody in this world up to date. I see run a first leg like this man ever, right? Right. So that's always going to be my vivid memory of Coach Q. But to get on to further details, definitely congratulations on the championships. Obviously, we
Respect.
wanted to do this interview before the championship between the
Yeah,
two,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but time just never allowed. But we're here now.
Yep.
Immaculate, you guys finished sixth, right?
Right.
All right. So I guess let me just segue into the first question. What were your expectations instead of placing for the championships?
I think myself and Coach France, France Ford, who is a head coach, we always start the season with we always not even start the season, we always end the season with a plan for the following year.
Mm,
And then from the previous year, the aim was to get to 100 points. And wherever 100 points put us, we'll be good with that. So that was the plan from on. It wasn't so much position.
okay.
Of course, we watch the positions once we see champs. I think when we see like we reach like day four and or day three and we're still the third, I said, wait, you get but we're more focused on the points and where we can hunt those points. Of course, we structure the team a
Mhm.
way that we can garner those 100 plus points.
Absolutely. All right. So, you did indeed say that, hey, the message from the previous year.
Mhm.
But when you're talking to the athletes before the championships, I know when I used to, run for Georges, I was just absolutely nervous, super nervous, don't know what to expect. You know, what is your message, being that you're a person who have represented at champs? What
Mhm.
is your message to your athletes, going out there, going to perform?
Boy, with stuff like that, you always need help. So, thankfully we had, garnered the expertise of a couple friend of mine, Jeremy Williams and Sean Williams, who are excellent, especially sports motivation speaker. It's from a spiritual perspective, obviously, but they really did a great job as far as getting the girls wired in and locked in, and getting them some sort of motivation. So it made our jobs as coaches just really just repeat, what they put forward and just kind of, tell them, say, hey, just going out there to have fun, enjoy yourself, try not to put added pressure on them because they
Uh-huh.
do that all by themselves. So,
Yeah.
just trying to get them to go out there as relaxed as possible and just give, the best effort they possibly can.
All right, perfect. It's a man of honor, third fall jersey. All right, so again, as persons coming and persons watching, persons listening, this for me is just a celebration of the sport. Celebration of the fact that we have a Georgian here, coaching immaculate and doing exceptional stuff. As I'm sure most of Jamaica, we have immaculate as a quote unquote bright school, right? That's how we have Immaculate as a bright school. So see them coming up in champs is really a thing, for us to be proud of. But let me ask you this question: going to an all boys school, what pushed you to Immaculate to coach solely girls, knowing that hey, from the ego, the macho St. George's, no, hey, after tilt it a little bit, for Immaculate. What came into that decision?
I blame France. I blame France for it. I tell you, and I think we before this medium came into play, I think you were part of it too. There was a Facebook group that were talking about champs. I think it's 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about, I guess Jordan's performance at the time. And I made a loose statement saying, at the time George was struggling. So I said, yeah, yo, now I'm like, me need to come coach George's cars.
Yeah.
I don't know what about this. You get me?
Yeah.
So that statement of my time champs done gone, it's about March, I think. And as I said, this was 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward now to 2012. Yeah, France sent me a message saying, hey, you did serious about the coaching thing. I say, what are you talking about? Like, which coaching thing? Which
Yeah.
statement? It must have from the group last year about champs and thing. I said, oh, word? Yeah, no problem with that. So I said, all right, cool. You know, he needs some help. So automatically, because at the time I think he was at George's,
Yeah.
in 2011, I believe, or 2010, whichever. But
Yeah.
in my mind, I thought he was at George's. So
Yeah.
I was like, all right, cool. Well, go ahead for the college and things. Yeah, so I remember saying, who I should address the resume or whatever, we don't George's must wrap it down. Man said, no, man, not George's, man. Immaculate, man said,
Immaculate.
man said, yeah, and yeah, I can probably say I judged Immaculate first. I was like, but Immaculate now have no a good team from, a good little while. So I said,
Yeah.
why? So, moving my mind, I'm gonna say, we just do it. And I remember it started November 2012,
Mm-hmm.
and rest is history.
Versus
Um,
this.
yeah, never regretted doing it. I think I was working another job while I was doing that. So, after a while, I was like, no, I just want to coach because
Yeah.
this is. So I think any sort of success that I reap as a coach, in track and field, I owe that to France.
All right. So, Wally West is asking, ask Coach Q as a bright school, how did he get buy-in the girls involved? So, as I say, immaculate as I think, most schools, education first, student athlete, etc., etc. But for a school that's predominantly known as one of the top high schools where education is concerned, how did you, Coach France, how did y'all get the girls to buy in?
But the reality is, with stuff like that, you don't want to take off you. And, being a bright school and that, there are actually, there are girls there that had a passion just doing well at the sport, that just love the sport, but just never get the opportunity to, because of the lack of proper coaching or resources to really truly, get into it. And, by whatever means it happened. I think France can attest to. I think back in the days, Sophia Morgan, that was a bright spot. That just ended
Mm-hmm.
up making multiple national teams as a high jumper and all of that time. I think when I got there by 2013, 2014, there was Janine Williams. We started to kind of unearth and realize that listen, track. It's not that. Typically, the thing is track people not bright. All right, So, but there are once you love the sport, and a lot of the girls just want to do well and just as much in love with the sport as we are. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't that bad, and what you find is it start off with 5 or 4, and then I think this year we had in the preseason squad was like about 70 going to 80 students.
Wow.
So yeah, and that's the most that Immaculate has ever had as far as like a training at one point. And we don't really have big facilities. So 70 people, enough, you get me?
And there's another question. Was the principal on board right away, or did the principal take some time to support the program?
I think before the current principal, we had Sister Angela, school rest in peace, who was really she loved sports. She was always an advocate for sports, and did anything that she could as far as helping us and kind of supporting our dream as far as the growth for the school. Because at the end of the day, she saw great benefits to school. And
Mm-hmm.
fast forward now to Mrs. Reynolds. She,
Mrs. Reynolds from Georges?
yes, I tell you, it's a full jar is take over.
Ah,
Yeah, so the buying was even more automatic, and
absolutely.
and then I think with the results that with a France-led child has been doing, with seeing those sort of results, you can't help but support it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Vinny Irvin is saying, I saw where one of his girls left and went to Edwin, one of his top girls. How does he guard against this, knowing that some girls may want to go where the glory is?
Um, Hey, you can't stop that. I think, I think that situation, was always, it seemed inevitable from the beginning, but, we tried to, it was never no English this or bad blood, at the end of the day, we welcome anybody if you want to, if you feel like you're not satisfied, and of course, you'd want to know, like, on what basis,
Mm-hmm.
um, that it wasn't so that we can, I guess build on it. But if you're not happy and you wish to leave, then there's not much we can do about that. Because at the end of the day, I think we had a discussion about it. The focus should always be on girls that are here, not on
Okay,
girls that want to leave. So that's where we
absolutely.
kind of focused our energy.
Absolutely. All right. So a question I want to ask, you know, as as one of the coaches there, I know, Francis is the head coach, but as one of the coaches there, how do you manage expectations versus reality? So, for example, you're going a class three. We know Naturist East is on top of the world, right? But how do you manage the athlete to let the athlete know, hey, you want to set a particular expectation, but you also know the reality of the situation.
There's no reality until the race finish. And as a former athlete myself, if nobody, 8 people line up in a race, and all 8 people should be aiming to win the race,
Yep.
right? Because
Okay.
at the end of the day, even if something happened to the top seeded person in the middle of the race, if you have that mentality, you're going to kind of want to ease up to make sure that that person wins. Right. So, the aim is, if there's somebody great in there, I think, the aim is just to be your best, so that if they happen to not be on their best that day, then you
Mm-hmm.
can take over. So, that's the mentality. So it's never, track and field is a gladiator sport. So, nobody goes in there ready to lose.
True.
Yeah.
True. All right. And we were talking about her backstage. For me, just a fan, don't really know much about Immaculate. I was looking, and for me, one of the standout performers was Kimberly, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's the stature, I don't know if it's the confidence, I don't know what it is. But what, just give us a little insight. And the last name is Williams, right?
Right. Kimberly, right.
Kimberly Wright. Okay, so Kimberly Wright, right? So give me a mindset in coaching an athlete like that. Who, and I'm saying, looking outside, looking in, right? This isn't just me looking.
Yeah.
Driven, motivated, doesn't like to lose, doesn't want to lose, doesn't matter who in the race. And one of the most important things, which I believe that you guys teach over there, run through the tape. It don't matter if anybody's near, she's running straight through the tape, dipping at the line.
You're right.
Yeah.
I'm happy that the product that is seen and from the spectators and from your end,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the same from our end. There's a lot of work in terms of putting it, as far as motivating her and getting her there, just getting her to believe in herself and
Yep.
her potential. And I think at some point she just bite into what we're saying and what we're giving her. And I think as a championship start to roll by, she started to see it and started to feel confident. And I think that's when she started to, you started to have that presence on the track, especially once you started the rounds of the 200 meters. So,
Okay.
naturally, that is something that she grew into at the championships. And, it's just our job, as far as to keep her keep her on that path moving forward. So know that she has a taste of glory, per se.
All right, perfect. All right, so I don't want to give away the secret sauce. However, I've seen coaches do this in the past. And so I want to know if this is something that you guys do at Immaculate. When you're working on the point system, and I know you said earlier you want 100 points, right? 100 points was the goal that you guys set. So when you guys are working on the point system, do you guys do like, okay, I won't put this athlete in an individual event, but I'll put them in a relay in order to maximize a point out of a relay, like say for example, like a medley, like something like that. Is that something that you guys do, or is like, hey, we enter the athletes?
No, it's at this stage you have to be deliberate. So you don't just roll a dice and hope it falls on six. Yeah, you have to be very deliberate. So we have to plan and plot. As Coach Franz as far as structures all the field events, my
Mhm.
responsibilities at the track events. So it's regular have a discussion on like, all right, so how do we fear of here, how we fear of there, and it's a little easier now looking on the using the ranking system that ISA provides,
Mhm.
which makes it so when we do our pre-champs calculation, we just do it based on a ranking system. So we say, all right, so we are at this point, we're sharp by X amount, so what we need to do to get up to the target. And that's where we can either make some shuffles if needs before really, mind you, we don't have as heavy a team or bigger team as the big schools to kind of do that many shuffles. But it might mean, all right, so we're not going to enter this event just to kind of focus on this because that event I don't think we'll be in finals. So let's keep the energy of this athlete focus on that particular event. And it worked out. So that it you have to be deliberate in terms of it's a point system, and if you want to score, you have to put position yourself to score.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
There was an event there that I guess is a trial and error. The mix medley, right?
Yeah, I
Mix.
think the mix
How
relay, mix 4x4.
mix relay? Yeah. How you feel about that?
It's that's the direction where world athletics is going, and it's kind of follows majority of the world athletics standards are put forward. So I think introducing it at that level is I don't think see it as a bad idea because this is contested at world championships. You get me? So it's contested on a senior level. So and I think part of it based on what Keith Wellington highlighted was is a part of the celebration of the 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 introduction of the girls champs into boys and girls champs. So it's a kind of a celebration of the boys and girls champs coming together. And what better way to do that than to have a boys and girls really fusion? So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right. So we're going to get into the track and field part. So we'll talk about the Immaculate. We'll praise you. We'll praise coach friends. We'll
Sure.
praise. We'll praise everybody, right? But I
Yeah.
want to get into. I want to get into track and field now. And the first thing that I really want us to talk about is this fast start rule.
Mhm.
I've, all right. I have a huge problem with the fast start rule. A huge problem. However, it's even a bigger problem to me when I see class four athletes, well, class four girls, getting disqualified for fast starting. And
Mhm.
my personal thing is that it affects development. You have an athlete training all year, nervous. I don't know what class four is on 10, 11, 12. You're going out there to run, the crowd making noise, you flinch, you're out. What? Tell me your view of the overall one fast start, and tell me if you feel like there is anything that we could alter for even the lower classes.
Um. All right. So I agree with the fast start rule. I don't have an issue with the one fast start rule. We've come from a stage where an event is pushed back by 30, 40 minutes just because people keep fast starting, and that's when everybody had two fast start. All right, and then it went again to first fast starts is a warning to the field, which is again that just kind of let people on an impulse to be like, all right, let me put everybody on edge and just fast start first, so that everybody can save anybody next out. So you create unnecessary tension on the field. So with the one fast start rule, it's pretty much across the board, you're under tension from beginning. So nobody gets to play or whatever. So the one thing though, as starters, is that I understand also is though it's a one fast start rule, there is a lot of it relies on the discretion of the starter.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm sure you've noticed, though there are fast starts, there are a lot of opportunities where they might have been deemed a red card that the field gets a green card. And
Yep.
again, that's at the discretion of the starter to tell them, say, listen, relax, ignore the noise, just get back, try not to twitch, or do you see the official that present the card actually speak to the person directly? And
Yep.
so I can't knock it when I'm seeing that sort of action being taken place. All right. And there is, for example, with my team at Immaculate, we spend a lot of time as far as teaching them. If they're still kids, that they have to learn in terms of okay, why you should do this. Sometimes it's just a matter of moving in the blocks, your legs move off the pad. So a lot of it has to do with educating them on the rule itself and what is deemed a false start. what you get a warning for and stuff. So they go in confident knowing, okay, cool, I don't need to false start. Or if there is an issue, they can argue from, at the point in terms of whatever is happening to get the discretion of the starter if needed. So, it's the the false start rule makes sense. I think sometimes the issue is when there's a lack of discretion from the starter, especially for the young girls.
So let me ask you. I don't remember the name of the athlete, but
Mm.
Mr. Brown's daughter.
Okay.
You remember that fast start, or something along that line?
That for when? That was at the shop?
Yeah, this champs there was a so I don't know if you remember, but
Mm.
so there was a I think it was a 100 meters semifinals, if I'm not mistaken,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that.
and and there was a fast start. You can judge if you think it's a fast start, it's hurdle, right?
Yeah.
But there was a fast start, and obviously, being in the stands, being in the crowd,
Mm.
persons were saying, "Hey, immaculate fast start," and it never happened. So what goes into it? What goes into it? If it's a yellow card. It's a red. I mean, red card is better. But if it's a green card, if it's a yellow card,
Yeah.
explain to the viewers, persons who are listening, persons who are watching,
So,
how can we know what card is coming out?
all right. So oftentimes the sensors will pick up what the naked eye can see.
Mhm.
Right? So you'll find also where you might see somebody step forward first, but that doesn't mean that she had made the first movement. So
Mhm.
the blocks are pressure sensitive. So ideally, the moment your foot leaves the blocks, it sends a signal to the computer to start.
Mhm.
So there is an allocated reaction time. All right. So if it is greater than 0.01, or if it's faster than zero point 0.1,
Mhm.
then it's deemed a false start. Because
Okay.
you can't humanly react faster than that.
Absolutely.
Right. So then that is takes into consideration. So if it's a case where, as I said, based on observation on the starter and his assistants, if it's a case where they say somebody might just be trembling and stuff and it's not deliberate, then like, all right, they call it back and they provide a caution for the field. There are sometimes, however, where there's a faulty start, where the start has gone or something, or the sensor, or something with the computer just didn't happen right. So then they call it back and they call it a faulty start. So those are the reasons why you see like a yellow or a green card as far as
Okay.
cautioning the field. Usually, when it's an issue with a particular athlete, especially at the junior level, you tend to see them have a conversation with them, or tell them you need to this or you need to that or whatever. Based on observation, and a lot of it is heavily based on the discretion of the staff.
Okay. Perfect. So there's been a lot of talk, and I kind of spoke to you about it backstage about overseas athletes coming to Jamaica to represent at the championships, right? And again, I'm not sure how it affects the female, the females, the girls' schools, because it's not talked about as much versus the Calabar, the JC, the KC, etc., etc. But I want your overall take on what do you think about overseas athletes, coming down in our system, getting our training, representing at the championships? Do you think, and I know it's a loaded question, but do you think also that it's a hindrance in the development of our athletes?
Not at all. I think that just speaks to how great champs is.
Mm-hmm.
The same way, in the college system at NCAA, there are so many Caribbean athletes there and from other countries that compete along with the US athletes. As in boys and girls champs, anybody from overseas will tell you the only thing that tops it is like the Olympics
Yep.
based on the atmosphere.
Yep.
I spoke with persons, I think she was here from Europe her first time, and she was amazed of the level of professionalism and the standard at which a high school championship is held in
Yep.
Jamaica. So naturally, you're going to want to be a part of that. And I think it's easy for schools to recruit athletes from these other countries because it's champs, and whether it provides them more opportunity to be seen, as far as scholarships and stuff or whatever. But I don't see. I think it builds our brand as Jamaica, and especially as a foundation for sports or track
Mhm.
and field in the region. So it builds our brand for that. So it becomes the this is where you need to be if you want to run fast because along with the atmosphere and you have the coaching, the level of coaching now has skyrocketed as far as the we call it now the athletes that the coaches that are being certified and all of
Yep.
that, the knowledge that's being shared. So it's the place to be, and I think it only helps the sport than it deters. In order to get better, you need to foster good competition. So whether they're coming in from wherever or their local ground, I don't see it being having a negative effect on the sport.
All right. So, do you believe that there should be a limit? Like, okay, KC, you can only get 5 athletes overseas, or should it just be, hey, any amount of athletes want to come, let's enroll them as much as possible?
No, and I think Issa did the right thing as far as putting together. There is so you can't have this many athletes. Or so, I don't remember what the total is, because clearly, I don't really practice it
Yeah.
to think that. So, but you're only allowed to have a certain amount of athletes that are transferred in from overseas at any particular, well, during a season competing for play school.
Mhm.
So I think it's 5 or something like that. So that controls it because it's easy at this point to be like, all right, then get everybody. All right, so it levels the playing field for the schools that might not be able to recruit as much or recruit somebody from Africa and stuff to compete. So it kind of evens the playing field a little bit when you have that sort of restriction, which is a very good initiative by Keith and the ISA body.
Absolutely. And Adrian is saying, as always, Champ starting to look like the World High School Games of the future.
Hey, and I think he's not wrong because this is the amount of people that are tuned in
Yeah.
at championships, and I think this was after so many years of like with COVID and the spectatorship kind of falling a little bit as far as live spectators.
Yep.
Walking into the stadium on Saturday night to watch the Class 3 4x1s and looking, and I was like, yes, we're getting back there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love it, and that's what it needs. And good competition fosters that.
Absolutely. So, I was having a conversation the other day, Coach Q, and I, I'm saying, I believe, and it's going to be a 2 part. I believe there are just certain athletes, even at a tender age, that needs world class coaching. Like they are so fast, they are so good, they need world class coaching right off the bat, right? And there's a couple names that come to mind right away. Akimon Shaw, who was there, Brianna Liston, who was there. I just believe that, and again, not throwing any shade on any coach, but I believe like these special athletes that come to us every once in a while, they need to be, and I know one word that you love. You love talking about the handlers, right? You love
Mhm.
talking about the handlers. And I believe that as an athlete with that kind of speed, that kind of venom, that kind of talent, it has to be nurtured. The nutrition have to be up from day one. The massage and everything, that the recovery, everything needs to be up from day one. And I believe not doing that will cause athletes to fail. To that you say what?
And I think a lot of times also, a lot of it has to be on the individual itself. So it's the environment, the surroundings. Sometimes you might have parents that mean well by doing too much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes the athletes are overtrained. So if somebody has this natural talent, especially when they haven't touched the age of maturation, you, you allow them to develop naturally on that path.
1 second, Coach Q. You mentioned something very important. You say overtrain. What does
Mhm.
what does overtrain look like? Because I think Jamaicans run from now till next year. What does overtrain look like to you?
So it's there are a lot of in terms of what we call training practices when it comes to young talents. You have what we call I'd like to call time release. So at what age or what time you introduce this particular training or particular drill or whatever. So like for example, you have somebody that's naturally fast. then as a coach, it's easy to get obsessed with how much faster we can get them to go. Right.
Mhm.
So, rather than probably letting them start with just, managing their body weight and stuff like that, then you're going into high resistance in terms of, how they lift and, power cleans and lifting and training like a professional. So what end up happening is that when they reach the professional level, there's nothing to add because you've already maxed it out.
Mhm.
Right. So
All
then they
right.
get to that point and then stop.
All right, perfect. I like where we're going, right? So there's an athlete now, where it is said that the reason why she is stagnant is basically what you just mentioned. That she has been lifting weights from an early age. So she has been training as a professional before being an actual professional.
Mhm.
Is that something, Coach Q, where the weightlifting is concerned? Is that something that is a detriment to the athlete? Should it be done too soon?
Um, it depends on how it is done. So, I start to teach athletes early in terms of how to lift correctly. So they're not necessarily doing heavy weights, but they're training motor skills. They're getting the body used to certain sort of movements. So that when they get to that point where they start to lift heavier properly, they can actually do it properly. So, there is a learning phase where it is necessary as far as lifting young. I think the issue is when, it's a matter of overload. Um, and in terms of and the relation of overtraining, you can't train hard 5 days a week, every day, every week for a month, and then expect at the end of the month you're going to be running fast. You
Mm.
get me? So as you mentioned earlier, as far as stuff like the massage and stuff, there needs to be that as much as you plan the training, there needs to be planned recovery. Right.
Okay.
So in terms of so that's where overtraining comes into play. So
Mm.
I think when I got into coaching, somebody gave me one fundamental rule as far as dealing with sprinters is that a tired man cannot run fast. Right. So if you have the body at a brink of exhaustion all the time, and when it's time to compete, they're fatigued. So they're not going to get maximum potential out of it.
Absolutely.
So I think that's where they are sometimes hit and miss with those talents. And as I said, I won't knock the coaches all the time. Sometimes it's up to the individuals themselves and their households or whoever is in of influence that's in their ear that might you know influence them to do otherwise rather than outside of what's instructed by the coach.
Absolutely. All right. So Adrian is saying, Coach mentioned body weight. How is that managed with girls who are very image conscious?
It's a hard. We've had girls that decide they'll stop in tracks because they get too tough. Yeah, they're getting too muscular, so they don't want to continue anymore. Some of them have to be like, all right, you try barter with them. But I think that is slowly based on I think the pattern of trends how where the world is going now. I think everybody appreciates an athletic body now, so especially on the female side. So that's less of a deterrent these days. But I think a couple of years ago we've had quite a few girls that that like boy, coach, I don't like might get too tough. Only to see by the time they reach six form, them in the gym.
Yeah, I get
I,
tough.
I
I
get
get
tough,
tough.
right?
Get tough.
So it can be a challenge, and you need to know girls. You have to always kind of be mindful of that sort of mentality in
So,
terms of.
so let me ask you, Coach Q. When an athlete, when a female athlete come to you and say, Coach, boy, may I get too tough, right?
Mhm.
How how do you do the convincing? What level? Where do you stop and say, you know what, hey, all right, she not gonna do it. It's okay.
Yeah. I think what I normally do is as like in whatever that you do, there are side effects to it. It's not a forever thing. If it's whatever your goal is, it comes with some added side effects. Say if your goal is like you want to run fast, get a scholarship, then you have to train a particular way. That might result in your body looking a particular way. And it's something that trying to encourage and something that you should be proud of as far as because it shows the work that you've been putting in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a staple of your commitment to your craft. So and usually that's the angle I try to do as far as to show them and other athletes out there like the Chileans,
Mm-hmm.
Dana Asher Smith that look amazing.
Yep.
Even Gabby Thomas that, though she's a world beater, she's not overly muscular and
Yep.
bearded, she's still
Absolutely.
elegant. Alison Felix, so a lot of it is, comes down to genetics and like, not everybody has to be, trapped and big to things. So, that's not the intention. A lot of it is some person's body respond differently, and that's just genetics.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, coach, while I was at the championships, I'm looking at the talent, coach, and I'm saying this talent is unreal. Like there is just so much. It's unfortunate that only one person can win, right? It's only
Mhm.
one person can come first, one person can come second, one person can come third. But the talent that I believe in this country, again, I believe, personally, not knowing anything that you know, but I believe that we should be a little bit further than where we are based on the talent that we have, right? I want to ask you a huge issue that I've seen in track and field is transitioning, right? And one of my theories is that I don't want to see Brianna Liston, the twins, um, Sherika Jackson. I don't want to see all of them training in the same camp, right?
Mhm.
I want it spread out a little bit, right? I want it
Diversity.
spread out a little bit, get some different training, get some different perspective because I believe, again, just as a fan, I believe it's also very difficult to train 4 world beaters, 5 world beaters, 6 world beaters. You understand me? So first let us talk about the transition. Why are our athletes not transitioning? After champs, why are they not transitioning?
I think again, a lot of it has to come down to the athlete. There are so much expectations that they have of themselves are being put on them. I cut to the chase. Especially on the boys' side, we've seen, the of the I guess the Calamari Dream Team.
Uh-huh.
All right, we've seen really only one actually matriculate, and
Okay.
it was through Christopher Taylor. All
Mhm.
right, and the reality is a lot of times it doesn't have to be on the basis of the athlete, or whether it be attitude. For some it is, where I think there's a famous interview where Bolt made mention of one of those athletes making a statement that we're rich, so you already think that he has arrived. You
Yep.
get me? So the hunger isn't there, and I think a lot of it comes from the stardom that's put on them at the high school level.
Mhm.
So they think it's an automatic thing that the transition has to be successful. When
Mhm.
really that is just your introduction to. It's just saying you're qualified to come and compete or try to be amongst us. It doesn't. At no point is it given it that you reach. And I think a lot of people would have blamed the early signings for these athletes, but I guess always the athletes at that stage because by then they're 18, 19, going 20, a lot of responsibilities on them because the coach can't force you to come and train. The coach can't make you run fast unless you train.
Mhm.
And I guess the handlers again, would have some play in it as well. But I think a lot of it could be the attitude, and the lack of the proper mindset or guidance to get to that next level.
And I see Adrian is saying personal also. Some athletes lose interest or find something else in life that interests them.
That's true. We've had athletes that had good promise to be great professionals that just was like, listen, they just wanted a scholarship. After a scholarship, that's it. They don't necessarily love the sport, but it's to a mean. So once they've achieved that, then they're good with that.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. So, I think what I wanted to, what we were talking about backstage, right? I was talking about strength versus speed, right?
Mm,
And I've seen a lot of athletes who last year they ran the 400 meters. No, they came down to the 1 and 2.
mhm.
Um, she's slipping me. She won the 100 at Carifta.
Yeah. I know you're talking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You guys know who we're talking. Somebody
Mm,
will somebody will
the
mention
name
it in
is
the
right
group.
there.
And she came third in the 200
Yeah.
at Carifta. Is it no? I don't remember. It's really slipping me right
It
now.
went to bottom list. I'm going to find it. Uh,
I will remember. Well, no, not Terry Long.
no,
No,
not
it's
Terry Long.
Carifta. Carifta. Oh, Terry Long came second at Carifta. And she did fast start in the 200 at champs.
No, she fast out in 100. Is it 100 or 200? Is
No,
it
she did
200?
fast start at 100, but then put her back in because it was
Okay,
error.
okay.
Don't remember her name, right? But
Dockery. Dockery.
Dockery, yes, yes, Dockery. So
Yeah.
she ran the 400 and then she came down.
Yeah.
Anita Baker as well.
Mm.
She ran 400. Now she came down to the 1 and 2, right? I was listening to Bruce James and he was talking about strength versus speed. And, in the 200 meters, we saw where speed, which is Terry Long, lost to Douglas, which is strength, right?
Strength.
Um, I want to know, and for the viewers as well, how do we garner strength versus speed in a 200 meters? How do you prepare your athlete if your athlete is a speed athlete versus a strength athlete? What is the mindset going into that?
So with every athlete, they have each have their own characteristics. So one might be strength based, one might have a lot of speed, but needless to say, they all need all of them. So strength might just be their strength, and the weakness might be speed. The fundamental of any race, even a marathon, in track and field, is speed. Is how fast you get to the finish
Yep.
against the other person. So speed is fundamental. Some persons have more of it, some persons don't. For in the case of like Shanoy and Terrell, so I won't say Shanoy just has speed. I think Shanoy has a excellent, I mean strength. She has an excellent balance. In at character trials, she ran 11.4 in the 100.
Mm.
Right, she ran at 22.8 in the 200, and it's our champs and she ran at 53. Right? So that is not somebody that is lacking anything. I think based on the championships alone, she's one athlete that I think is well rounded, has a perfect balance. She's not super explosive, clearly she's not built like that. As opposed to a Terra Long where she's very linear, very tall, and very explosive. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to who is one prepared best, and just who has the grit at the end of the day. Because I think it was a good race down until I think the last 30 when boy. I think that's where the 400 strength of Shania can just stand firm and hold our grounds. Where at that point, Terry Long was running out of speed, or the speed
Yep.
endurance was literally just falling.
Yep.
Right, so you train the athletes to maintain the strength and build the weakness.
Okay. All right. So maintain the strength and build the weakness. All right. Perfect. Talking about Terry Long, there was something that myself, along with the fans in the stands, didn't like. Um, Obviously, for the 100 meters, we're hearing that she wanted to break the record. That was her aim.
Yeah.
Started bad, didn't happen. Right?
Mm.
Tantrum, all that stuff. Right? Okay, cool. You like to see the passion from the athlete, right? So the first question is, how do you balance passion versus, all right, you're doing too much now, right? How do you balance that? Or do you allow the athlete just to express all their emotions, get it over with, and then restart?
Yeah, I think the first in any championship or any race, the aim is always to win. As I mentioned earlier. So win is paramount. Afterwards, then what time did you get? If you run for the time, then yeah, chances are it will elude you. So if you just focus on executing the race as you ought to and going in, and I think in comparison to Alana Reed's 10-9 run, was it last year? That was just literally her running
Mm-hmm.
to win as hard as possible, and the time showed up, and hence the same you see in the flip side as far as where Terry Long was, I guess tantrum and upset to where Alana Reed, everybody could read her lips, could know exactly what she said
Yep.
as she go through the line, right? So it comes with it, and I think once you're passionate about something, and that could have been the target that she set for herself um, at championships, and it just didn't work out like that. So Yeah.
All right. And we have Triple LC saying, well, Adrian was saying spoiled, entitled. And Triple LC is saying it's okay to be disappointed. Leave the young lady alone. She has goals. Right?
Yeah, it scores. It scores, and no athlete like losing. In this case, I guess she didn't get the target that she set for herself. So, and I think she figured that she had it.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. All right. So when the 100 meters were running, you know, Bruce James outlined that there are three phases in the 100 meters, right? And he labeled them as drive phase, stride phase, and lift phase.
Mhm.
That was his label of the 100. So, as someone who ran the 100 meter themselves, as in you, um, can you outline to the viewers exactly? Because just a random Joe watching track and field, you see them hold them head down, they wonder what the hell is that. You see
Yeah.
them start, you don't know what's going on. So can you explain to the viewers, to probably the lovers of track and field who don't really understand track and field, or to the girl who's watching this podcast who her boyfriend is in love with tracks, what she want to gain some little knowledge, so when they want to talk about it, she can say, oh, that's the dry face, right? Can you tell us a little bit how um, the drive phase, how the 100-meter race go overall?
All right. So, Bruce is correct. As far as the breakdown, I would call it a little bit different. So the drive phase, in modern terms, they call it now the push phase. Then from that phase, you go into, rather than the stride phase, there's an acceleration phase, and then yeah, then you move into maximum velocity.
Okay.
And then at that point, it's just speed endurance.
Okay.
So the push phase is pretty much, at this point you're leaving the block. So what you're trying to do is you're garnering enough power to give you enough momentum before you get into the acceleration phase. So let put this into perspective. If someone does not do the drive or use power or strength at that first part of the race, like for those first 10 meters, you would see that in the last part of the race. So rather than you can only humanly accelerate to about 60 meters. All
Mm.
right. So if you add 5-10 meters of pushing, of building a momentum using power to get you there, to get you going. So that's 10 meters. And then you start to accelerate. And you maximize, let's say, the full 60 meters. So now you've covered 70 meters to
Mm-hmm.
get to maximum velocity, right? And then now you only have 30 meters to carry through the line. As opposed if you did not have that drive or that push or power phase, then you're going right into acceleration. So then you have to, rather than trying to maintain your maximum velocity or speed endurance for 30 meters, you're doing that for 40. So it's humanly impossible to maintain it. So you're going to decelerate. The trick is just who decelerates slower than the next person. Right, so that is a push. Acceleration is just pretty much getting to top speed,
Yep.
right? And max velocity is holding that top speed. Once you're there, maximizing it. You're at the ceiling as far as how fast you can go. And then the speed endurance is just maintaining that max velocity for as long as possible before the inevitable happens where you start to decelerate.
So let me ask you a question. Let's use Shelly and Fraser for example. Early in her career, we
Mhm,
realized that the first couple phases she was there.
mhm,
As the race, continues, she starts, slowing down, and the feel,
right.
starting, to
To,
catch up
to
to her.
pull her back, right?
Yeah.
Shelley has an immortal acceleration. So she maxed out that. And I think at that point in time, that was enough to get it done. As she now strives to get faster and run faster times, and the field is a lot closer. It's on her now.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things that has to be considered. If you've noticed her mechanics
Yep.
then versus now is a lot different.
Yep.
From the last 40 meters where she's literally begging for the line
Oh
to now
gosh.
where
Yes,
she's
sir. Yes,
she's
sir.
up tall and lifting, that is pretty much deterring deceleration as best as possible by improving the mechanics, coupling that with her already great acceleration.
Okay. All right. There's a couple other things I want to discuss. So I'm of the belief, right? I'm of the belief that if you're a powerhouse school, then you need a powerhouse coach, right?
Mm.
And when and I know, again, this is just a discussion, that's a track and field discussion. But when Corey Bennett decided that he was going to coach Calabar and Heidel, I was of the opinion that that's like career suicide, right?
Right.
Because listen, it's not like and throwing no shade on no other school, but Calabar is a school that is expected to win champs every year, or
Mm.
at the very least compete for champs, right?
Mm.
Same thing with Heidel. I believe if you have two powerhouses, it's hard for one coach, and I know you have other coaches, this and that, but it's hard for a head coach to give himself to two schools, regardless of how him do it, when him do it, why him do it. I just think it's hard, and I'm not sure if the reports are true, but I heard that he's leaving Calabar now and just sticking with Heidel. I'm not sure, but overall, what do you think about a coach trying to coach two powerhouse schools? Do you think it's possible?
I think as the individual, you kind of have to know what your strength is, and know your the capacity in terms of how you're able to carry that team. Clearly, being a head coach doesn't mean you coach every single athlete on that team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's where, as you mentioned, you have a good team, a staff of coaches with you to be able to be like, all right, execute this or execute that. And then having that on both sides would be of paramount importance. It's pretty much like it's I think it'll be more of like a technical director position as far as all right. Say it could be a case where I don't know he just writes the programs, send it to the coaches, they execute it, and he observes and do the same for Calabar and for both schools and Heidel. And execute well. I don't see right currently. I don't see where Heidel suffered from his inclusion into Calabar. But I have seen Calabar improve from where they were before he went in.
You
So
see them improve?
yeah, man, there has been remember Calabar. They're going through inevitable transition in terms of
Okay.
this
Okay.
at the end of the Michael Clark reign, to where this is after the Jours left, the Taylors, all of those, then there was almost like a level bit. And if you check champs history, nobody you can't win all the time.
Yep.
You have a good stretch, but
Mm-hmm.
it inevitably comes to an end. And usually when it comes to an end, you might get a one-off school that will drop to a second and pick up back. But you might track for a while before you get back, and it comes down to again not just the coach, but how recruiting is and all of that. But I can see that they have some presence as far as growth based on especially based on the coaches that he has brought to him
Okay.
along his staff at Calabar.
Okay.
So I can see, and he has a so good, reputable coaches a part of the staff there. So I don't see it being
But
too much of an issue.
Coach Q, so for you and for other person in that track space, all right, Calabar is improving. But for the avid fan who I come to support Calabar and them third place, 200 points off KC, big
Mm.
rival. What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
How can a rival fan be, or how can a Calabar fan be optimistic about what's to come, seeing that they just lose to KC by umpteen points?
And that's the role of a fan. A fan doesn't really care what's happening. As a fan, if this is your
Yeah,
team, or you want your team win,
yeah,
right? So you're not a fan with them because they come third. So
yeah,
yeah, and I promise you,
yeah.
no coach, especially Corey or anybody a part of the Calabar management team is okay with coming third. I can tell you this much, there must be some plan in place as far as like, all right, so what's the trajectory? At what stage? All right, so is it year one, year two? By year three, we'll be winning champs. Yeah,
Okay,
and those are discussions that they'll have with Corey, and then those are plans that we put in place to foster their recruiting
okay.
and in terms of how they do things. So I promise you, it's not a case where they're okay with coming third. Schools that are winning want to keep winning.
Yep. Okay, fair enough. So I want to talk about injury. You know, obviously we know when we're doing any kind of sport, injury is something that we fear, but it's something that's kind of inevitable. We have seen the best of the best get injured. You're seeing Shelly, Elaine, etc. Right? But I want to ask you, coach, how do you manage an athlete who's coming from a major injury, especially these young athletes who they might be timid, they might be scared, they might I don't want to run on JC anymore because that's where I get hurt. How do you manage that kind of psyche when you're doing that as a coach?
It's tricky because there's a thing called like there's a psychological term for it. I'm not sure, but there's such a thing like an injury phobia. So if you've been injured once, you're forever very cautious. Like if a mosquito bites you on your left leg, that is it. You don't want to feel anything. I've experienced it with girls on my team where they don't like to feel any sort of discomfort at all. Anything just feel off, it's a big fear, and sometimes it come from it's a trauma, and it's a traumatic experience, and they don't want to experience that again. So it causes they're very timid in terms of when they run, in terms of running at maximum pace or competing at a high level because they fear the injury coming back. So a lot of time has to be like track and field now has gone beyond just the track and the way through like we've had therapists in terms of psychologists to help athletes overcome these sort of situations.
So, Elaine, right? Obviously, this is an Olympic year, and it's something that we have to pay attention to. She is, as you guys said, a double double, and there's only one great one that has done the triple, right? And that's great to see in both. And obviously, it would be a great feat for Elaine to go ahead and accomplish this. However, there was some coaching changes from the last time we spoke.
Right.
The last time that we spoke, she was being coached by a young lady, slipping my hand right now.
Shelly. Yeah, Shelly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there she was coaching her, and obviously there were some issues going on, and I'll ask you as a coach coming up, how would you feel about it? I'll ask you about that part after. But now she's now with Mr. Walcott, right? And it has been reported that obviously she's training differently from Shelly, right? That's what's been reported. But again, talking about quote unquote two bull in one pen. Shelly has said that this is her last year. Obviously, you don't know how long Elaine, but I'm sure Elaine wants to go ahead and win another Olympic. So when you look at this, coach, can the fans out there have, obviously you probably don't know as much as I don't, but can we expect anything from Elaine, seeing that once Shelly joined Mr. Walcott, it was fireworks right off the bat, right? Obviously, when she was with Shelly, that is Elaine, she was improving. So is there something that we can look forward to, something that we can expect?
Well, I think that's part of one of the reasons why she made that adjustment as well, in terms of, keeping in mind also that Coach Walcott was formerly of MVP coaching staff where Shelley and Elaine are from. So in the event, for lack of a better term, Frano's formula worked for
Mm-hmm.
Elaine, worked for Shelley. And I think, they'll be getting pretty much the similar philosophies or
Yeah.
practices that they're accustomed to. So it's almost like a safe space knowing that well, this would
Mm-hmm.
work because it's close enough. It's the closest thing to the ingredients that we normally get from MVP. So I think that was what was put into perspective, and the Samantha making a decision of her own self, and considering the same thing that we're talking about. It's an Olympic year. The triple is is something to go after. So I'm sure she's not planning on taking it light, but she wants to maximize whatever opportunity she can get,
Yep.
by going to the best person that she think can get her there.
All right, so that's a couple more questions because I know you're busy and I know you have stuff to do and I have to sleep, right? So, someone, well, actually, Triple LC, asked me this and she wanted me to ask you. like at the Olympics when if you break the record, they get extra money.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to know if you think if champs implement, okay, if you break the record, your school gets some extra points.
I think last year, I think Grace had a thing where you get the schools actually got not the schools but the athletes for breaking records got like a was it 20 or 50,000 dollars scholarship as far as money put towards sent to the school to cover up with the school fee and stuff. So those sort of incentives are awesome. I don't think extra points for a record would be yeah well I think more to the individual crediting the individual would be ideal the best thing rather than the school.
Okay,
Um, yeah, the same way Olympics or World Championships do it, the individual that gets the praise, not the country. That's all right.
got it. So there was a delay in the championships because there was something wrong with the track at the
Uh,
at the 200-meter mark. They had to delay the 200 because
yeah.
XYZ. And can you just shed some light on the viewers who probably don't know or probably was wondering what happened to the track, and is it time for us to get some new Chevron boss?
Well, I think to answer the latter, I think based on I think reports that the Honorable Babji Grange outlined is that the new stadium will be remodeled come 2025. So, I guess the new track will be implemented and stuff by then. But I think it's regular maintenance that's needed for any track.
Yeah.
I think the issue that they're having on the day was I think they realized that there was the 200-meter mark was compromised. Whether it was a case of oversight, but usually because they did that for the 100, when they relay some chevron there, so you have it because it's a most used area on
Yes.
the track. So I think they probably was an oversight or something by IPL, which is Independence Park or whoever. Um, Maybe that they decided they opted to try and attempt the restoration in the night before
Mm-hmm.
not realizing that I guess I don't know not realizing or not noticing that it takes hours to dry and it just wasn't dried in time. So it might have been a case, as I said, of poor scheduling or an oversight or stuff like that. I don't think the during champs was the right time to
Mm-hmm.
attempt such a fate. But I think they opted to go through with it, and it resulted in the big delay. Where I think we were off by 2 hours.
Yeah. So Adrian is saying Miss Green's been promising for 5 years now. I'm not confident.
Well,
Um
I can't
so
speak more than what she said.
so um so let's go a little bit international. Noah Lyles has been hunting down Usain's record, right? And
Mhm.
whether he's talking to himself, doing public interviews, he has said that the record is something that he wants. He has
Yep.
been unapologetic about it. He has
Mhm.
saying, this is going to be my record. Now, I see Asafa saying, hey, if the any record is going to go, I think it's going to be the 200. I hear both saying, oh, well, I think Noah has a chance, but there's some few things he needs to fix up. But I'm not going to tell him how to break a record,
All
right?
right.
So I'm thinking probably Noah's confidence is seeping into the Jamaicans out there. I want you just as a not even as a fan, as a coach, right? Just as a coach, as a student of the sport, right? And I know records are meant to be broken. But when you have watched Noah's development over the years, remember the last Olympics, he
Mhm.
lost to um, DeGrasse and in the 200, and he went down a different spiral, and then he came back. But you watching his development over the years, do you believe this is something that is achievable, or do you believe, hey man, this is fool's gold right here? He's just talking.
Um, he- he's a man on a mission. He's a man on fire. And I can say from observation from a coach's perspective that
Yeah.
he has been employing some key aspects to his races or his preparation that will make you actually wonder. Like it look like he might get close.
Yeah.
For example, He was never known to be a 60-meter
Yeah.
runner or to be good at 60-meter any
Yep.
at all in any
Yep.
100-meter race.
Yep.
He's now world indoor silver medalist in
Yep.
60 meters,
Yep.
beaten only by the man that has the world record for 60
Yep.
meters.
Yep.
All right, and to say that he still that doesn't take away from the fact that he's still a great finisher.
Yep.
So if he gets to 60 faster
Yep.
and can finish better, then clearly expecting his time to improve. On that basis, where we've seen where his body has changed, he's a lot more powerfully like tank built now, as
Yes.
opposed to the slender lads that we're accustomed to.
Yes.
He's a lot more massive and muscular. Speaking to him being a lot more explosive, which would be ideal things needed to improve for the 100 meters, and we've seen that with him winning the 100 meters at the World Championships, right? So
Yes.
already, he has ticked off boxes. And when somebody starts to tick off boxes, their confidence
Yep.
starts to grow. So,
Absolutely.
and I think, as a star fan both allude to as far as the 100-meter being a little bit harder, is because you don't have room for mistakes. You
Yep.
take one error and then
Out of
all
it.
of
Yep.
that gone. Right. So, that might not be the easiest thing to obtain. I think personally, I love to see him run like some consistent 9.7s and drop a couple 9.6 to be like, all right, yeah, I'm in the ballpark. But I think if he hasn't lost much based on his preparations for where the 200 is concerned, I
Yep.
think he can definitely challenge the 200-meter record, lowering his own national record,
Mhm.
even some more to get down to the 19.2s and 19.1s.
Let me ask you, Coach. Just overall, as a coach and as a fan, do you think the sport is in a good place right now?
Yes, and I love where the sport is. There has been so much improvement as far as how the sport is presented.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that at the games, like everybody talks about Doha in terms of the sort of money that was put into creating that spectacle.
Yep.
With the athletes coming out and the laser show on the track and all of
Yeah.
that. That is what the sport needed. It needed fanfare. And we got that, and we've been getting that. We even see that at champs. We start having like fireworks and all
Yep.
of that.
Yep.
That is those are the key things that we need to kind of glorify the sport more. And I'm loving the direction that it's headed. And I think especially on the basis of compensation, obviously where athletes are getting paid a little bit more, even though I think World Athletics improved the payment for World Championships a little bit. But
Mhm.
any improvement is better than none.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm sure athletes would love to see that that money, that number go up somewhere. But to keep in consideration also that World Athletics has also announced that from 2025 there'll be a World Championships every year, which I think is amazing
And
because because there's always something to work after every year. So there's no null year and stuff. So at the end of every season, there's a World Championships, and I think that just creates an avenue for athletes to earn bigger and earn more.
all right, so the earn bigger portion is there, but there have been a lot of pushback to say, hey, wow, these athletes won't get a year off, won't get some time to recover. To
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
you say what?
You can, as in you as an athlete can say, all right, I went to the season off, coach. We'll just kind of slow it down a little bit so I can recover or recoup. We've seen athletes go have baby and come back,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
with Shelly, what's her name, Allison. So
Yep.
it's not, it doesn't stop you. I think the responsibility is on the athlete. So at that level, it's not like high school. It's on the athlete at that level to be like, all right, I'm going to skip World Championships this year, but it is still available and present. So at the event, at any way, it provides an opportunity for others to step up where that is concerned. So if you decide you want to run for 10 years, go 10 World Championships straight, then you're
Yeah.
going to
And
you're going to pay for that.
yeah, and I was about to say because those athletes, for example, the Veronica Campbell Browns, those athletes who retire, onto their next life, who had to wait every 2 years for a world champs. Now, when you put their resume up against, let's say, like a Brianna Liston, who is coming into the era now where every year is a championship. Do you think it's, for lack of a better word, fair? That they'll have the
I think
opportunity, or is just the evolving of the sport?
it's evolving, and I think the sport would be doomed if it didn't evolve.
Yep.
There needed to be some sort of modification and change. It need to go with the times. As I said, the main thing now is it needed to
Mm-hmm.
be more attractive. Every
Mm-hmm.
year there's a Super Bowl.
Yep. Yep.
There, nobody complains about why I'm a Super Bowl every year. Every
Yep.
year there's a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, outside of the World Cup, but there's Champions League every year. There's so many opportunities for these football players to earn.
Yep.
I think it's the same in terms of creating similar opportunities for the track athletes to earn, the track and the field athletes to
Yep.
earn as well. So you can within the same year you can have Commonwealth, Olympics, and World Championships.
Yep.
Right. So ideally you might not have if you make somebody make a World Championship team might opt out of going to make an Olympic team might opt out of going to World Championship team.
Yep.
That creates an opportunity for somebody else now to step
Absolutely.
up where that is concerned. So I think it keeps things rolling. It's like I guess it's pretty much they say with social media, the more you post, the more algorithm, the more you start to attract followers. I think it's the case. If you constantly have things rolling in track and field, you're pulling eyes to the sport.
Absolutely. All right, so Coach, Q, about four more questions, and then because I can talk all night, right? This is a sport we love, right? So
You name the voice.
about four more questions, and then we get out of here. So, Brianna Williams have decided to leave Jamaica and go overseas to LA
Right.
with some coach, right? And I'm thinking that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that at some point in time, we have to we have to look at the role that we play in our own suffering, right? You can't always be the coach, right? Sometimes it's what about my practices, right? So she was with Atto, and everybody and them grandfather, oh, Atto can't coach, Atto this, Atto that, right? All right. She left, and she came to Jamaica, and I heard that, all right, this person is going to get her right, she's going to do this, she's going to do that. She's actually regressed, in my opinion, right? You can make your own judgment, but to me, she regressed, right? And for whatever reason that was, no, she is going back up again to try and find back a particular form. Now she said she's going to now tackle the 200 meters as well, faithfully, to see if to see what can happen. As a coach, right? I'm just going to ask you, pure as a coach, looking at an athlete like this, who we talk about it at a tender age, she was fired. We thought that the next Shelley, the next, is there any room for improvement, or is it that this is just where it's at for her?
I think she does have room for improvement because post her junior years, she has improved. She has broken the 11 seconds bar. I think clearly she expects more of herself. That's why she is, searching. She's out there trying to find, okay, where is it that I need to go to get to this level, to get to the next level. And sometimes it's a change of environment that needs that. I think we're trying to come to Jamaica and stuff. I think my only issue looking on was, it could have been a plus, but I think didn't have enough of female sprinters in the camp, close to her level. Of course, you can always train the guys all the time, but I think um, you have more of a, I guess, a feeding environment around there, especially with your kind. It would
Yep.
be a little bit better.
Yep.
Like for example, at Elite, you have Kimber Nelson, you have a whole list of athletes that will get in terms of trains with Shelly.
Yeah.
So I think that was for me. That was one thing that I wish she had when she was here. I don't know if that's the reason why she's leaving. But I think when you feel like something isn't working, you you have to act on it. And I guess
True.
she just made that prompt action. I personally wouldn't do that in the middle of the season, but again, it's Olympic year. We don't know what's happening. We don't know what contract is on the line. We don't
Yep.
know, you have to defend your livelihood. And
Absolutely.
remember, it's a job. It's
Absolutely.
a career choice, and they get paid based on their performances. That's where you win
Absolutely.
contracts. That's where you win medals. So, I think, and tired of. I'm personally tired of seeing her solely as a relay athlete at championships. But
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure she wants to be, one of those soul members, and for the 100 meters or even the 200 meters. I think that would help her as far as because she's a 200-meter world junior champion.
yep,
So I think that would be good for her as far as improving her hundreds at least.
absolutely. And you're free to not answer this question, but did Coach Q try to get her under his wings? You don't have to answer if you
No,
don't.
no, no. I've not. I took a break from coaching pros, but I'm going back into that area. I should probably just leave too soon.
Coach, we still have the vision in the coach.
School, I'm working on it.
So coach, if there is a young man out there who, you know, did track, but it probably didn't work out, wasn't his calling, and he wanted to get into coaching. What would be your advice? I've no links, don't really know nobody, but he wants to get into coaching. He's passionate about coaching. He's passionate about track and field. What would be your message to him?
Call France. I think. No, the message actually would be, if the passion is there and really driven to it, then learn as much as you can. There are so many certifications, and you probably have to start by pretty much volunteering.
Yeah,
Try getting as an understudy for a coach somewhere, and I think that's how you develop. That's how you learn. You learn best in the field. Of course, you need the added theory as well, but that's the best place to go to learn and learn from people that are in it, and that's how I track and field. I'm a student of the sport, so
yeah,
I continuously learn from my mentors, like
yeah,
Oki Stewart, who is head of strength and coaches like Rashawn Clark and had Jai, back in the day,
yeah,
Michael Clark, you know,
yeah,
from Calabar days, JC before that, Jago before that. There's so much wealth and knowledge out there. I observe Glenn Mills a lot. I observe, you know, Stephen Francis a lot. So it's there's so much information is out there. You know, plentiful. So it shouldn't be hard. Just try to absorb as much as you can, and just get involved with the sport. You have to get into it in order for it to happen.
absolutely, absolutely. And the final question, Coach Q, is really just about you. Obviously, there are many who went with you to Georges, see how you've grown, see how you've developed, and see how you've been able to excel. But for you personally, where do you get your validation from? How do you feel validated as a coach? Doing what you do on a day-to-day basis.
From the athletes, my drive comes from them. My challenge for me always is, especially initially, was what their goals are.
Mhm.
I credit my my I guess I credit France for getting me into the sport, for me
Mhm.
staying into it. I credit one of my past athletes, Janine Williams, was a hurdle at Immaculate. I remember coming from not champs, from a track meet, from
Mhm.
JC track meet. The Saturday, I think the following Monday, she was crying, saying that boy, she go quit tracks because it not work, and everybody, our father said, I went to sense, our brother was, I'm like, so I said, what is it that you want? And she said, well, so I said, list everything. So she said she want to medal at champs, she want to make a national team, she want to, get a scholarship to go for school and, go into the professional world as well. So I said, all right, well, I challenge you. If that is what you want, stick with it, and I guarantee you get it. And I think at that point it forced me now. Because first of all, I thought she was just sprinting, but then here said it's hurdles, So then forced me, to dig up knowledge and talk to people and try
Yeah,
get it. And
absolutely.
needless to say, by the time she left Immaculate, she was a multiple national representative at the CARIFTA and CSC at the junior level. Even still have, I think, a CSC record. She got a scholarship, of course.
Yes, sir.
Then, she competed as a senior
Yes, sir.
CSCs and stuff again for Jamaica as well. So, I think that is my validation, seeing them achieve what they set out for. I've always called Immaculate my ministry, not just our team that I coach, but, I have a responsibility to ensure that these girls matriculate to
Yep.
whatever their next step is, whether it be college, whether it be to, professional level or whatever it
Yep.
is, just to kind of help in their development, even outside of just the sport. But, we both know that track and field does a lot for you outside
Yes,
of just the track and field, right?
yes, sir.
As far as discipline and in development as an individual. So, I try to ensure that those bases are covered, and, seeing them go off to college and seeing them, be happy with their performances and, win those medals. That's where my validation comes in.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Well said, man. Well said. Well, definitely, Coach Q, man. I couldn't thank you enough, for coming and as I said, it could have got 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. It's always a joy. From sports frenzy, from we're talking about world champs, talking about Olympics. It's always a joy just to learn, learn from you and any little nugget, that you can pass on to me, to the persons who are watching and listening. We definitely appreciate it. Definitely for those in the comments, those who are watching, those who are listening, please just like and subscribe as we try, to build this channel. Coach Q, once again, thank you, boss. And,
It's
we'll talk.
always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, man. Thank you.
All right, respect, boss.
Blessings.
Yeah.